Hey tribe, Sally here. Hope you're having an amazing and fascinating day. I know I am. Welcome back to my tiny RV kitchen, and this is a view that we haven't tried before. So I'm looking at my phone to see what you're seeing. This will be an experiment, because this whole thing is going to be an experiment.
Wake up with the sun in our eyes. Sally forth, no need for goodbyes. Journey calls, let's roll the dice. Every mile a new surprise.
What are we experimenting on? Well, we are experimenting on using the bread maker to make a loaf of bread powered by the BLUETTI that's down here just below the countertop. So I've got all my ingredients out right here. Not a whole lot of ingredients that actually go into bread making, and I'm using one. It's a total experiment, guys. So we've got a cup of water ready to go. I'm going to make a 1 pound loaf of bread. We've got our salt ready, dark rye flour, all-purpose flour, and I'm going to add some cacao powder because I think cacao and dark rye is a really good choice. Our yeast is right here, and caraway seeds, because what's rye bread without caraway seeds? Rye is my second favorite kind of bread. My favorite kind of bread is sourdough in any form. But we're not quite ready for that yet, because apparently sourdough bread in the bread maker is a whole thing. So I want to make sure that I can do this first reliably with a conventional loaf of bread, and then we're going to expand into the whole sourdough realm. So that'll be cool. I want to be upfront about this from the very beginning. This is the bread maker. Not plugged in yet, but we're going to plug it in to the BLUETTI to bake this time. And the BLUETTI is still at 100% because I haven't actually used it since I got it. So, and you can see the cord for the BLUETTI is plugged into it. And there's the other end of it. Just in case I use the whole thing up, because I have no idea how much power this actually takes. So if I need to, I'm going to plug the BLUETTI into the outlet in the kitchen to let it finish, but that will give us a lot of information as well as to whether or not this is something that really can be done just on a power station. Alright, so the way the bread maker works. Let's see, can I get this out here a little further? Yeah, I think I can. So the way the bread maker works, I've got the lid open right now. Looks like this when it's all closed up. We're going to open it up. First thing we're going to do is take out the bucket. So this is what you use to actually make the bread. And then we've got this little paddle that goes down in the bottom here. And it's keyed, so it only goes on one way. And I'm doing it by feel. Maybe. There we go. So now you can see the paddle is inside of here. Well, maybe you can't see because it's black inside. But we can move the bread maker out of the way, because what you do is you take the bucket out first, add your ingredients in the order that they're listed in your recipe. I'm actually using a recipe. I know, it's hard to believe, isn't it? This is a Cuisinart bread maker, and the way they design the recipe book, this is actually pretty clever. You can make a 2 pound loaf, a 1.5 pound loaf, or a 1 pound loaf. I'm making a 1 pound loaf. That's what we're going to do today. And it tells you what the ingredients are and the exact quantity for a 1 pound loaf. And the basic directions are that you add the ingredients in the order in which they appear. So the first thing that's going to go in is going to be the water. And I've already measured out our cup of water. So we're going to go ahead and dump that in. Get the cup measure out of the way, and now I got to put on my glasses because it's tiny print. It is, it's just very tiny print. And next up is going to be kosher salt at 3/4 teaspoon. I don't have any kosher salt, so we're going to use conventional salt. Well, not conventional because I never do. We're going to use Himalayan pink rock salt. And you know, I'm going to put my microphone on so that if I have my back to you, you should still be able to hear me clearly. And of course, let me know what you think of this view. Did we like this one where you get to see the whole house as I'm working here? Or do you like it better when I give you the top-down view or the side on the counter view? We have choices. But I just thought it would be fun to try this one this time. All right, so there's a 1/4 teaspoon. And so when you're making bread, guys, you actually do have to measure stuff. You know, if you watch any of my other cooking videos, I tell you over and over it's not important to measure. Well, it's kind of important to measure for bread. Kind of important to measure for bread. All right, next up we have unbleached all-purpose flour. And we need 1 1/4 cups. So let's grab our 1/4 cup measure. So that's going to be 5 1/4 cups. And you know what I'm going to do actually? I'm going to shake up this jar of flour, get it a little bit looser because I'm not sifting or anything. And when I put it in the jar, I packed it pretty hard so I could get as much in as possible. Yeah, that looks much fluffier. So when you're measuring flour, you want to level it off. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So that's 1 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour. And then I'm also looking forward to getting into bread recipes. Into bread flour recipes as well. But as I said, for the moment, we're following this exactly the way that it's written in the hopes that we have good results. So next up is rye flour, and we want 3/4 cup. So there's 1. Let's see how much mess I can make this way. That's 2. And as I suspected, we need to open another package of rye flour. So 3/4 cup of rye flour. And the recipe says 1 1/2 teaspoons of caraway seeds. I'm going to do 2. And before I get there, I'm going to pretend we're still in the realm of flour. And I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of cacao. Same thing, I'm going to loosen this up a little bit so it's not packed too tight. 1 and 2. And then we're going to do 2 teaspoons of caraway seeds. There's 1. And there's 2. And a couple extra, because why not? All right. And then the very last thing we need is 1 1/2 teaspoons of yeast. So I'm going to tell you something I found out about yeast when I decided to get the bread machine. And that is, they actually make yeast that's designed for bread machines. So you can get conventional yeast, you can get active dry yeast, and you can get bread machine yeast. Bread machine yeast apparently is the fastest acting. And we need 1 1/2 teaspoons, so there's 1/2, 2/2, 3/2. Okie dokie. Now we've done the hard work. Yeah, we have now done the hard work. Pretty crazy, right? So now we take the bucket and we put it in the bread machine. And it goes in on a little bit of an angle, and then you twist it to lock it in place, just like that. Put the lid down. I guess we got to plug it in now. And that means I got to turn on the BLUETTI, which I've never done before. I haven't turned it on to use it, at least. Turning on the AC outlet. And plugging it in. Well, we know it provides power, so that's a good sign. So this is the first time I've actually used the BLUETTI. So then we're going to choose Program to select white, which was Program 1, so I got to go through the whole thing. 1, okay. Program 1. Then the crust color, I'm doing dark. I like dark crust. And then press the start-stop button. You ready? Here we go. Okay, so what's happening right now is that it's doing the mixing phase. It's going to mix, it's going to knead, it's going to rest, and then it's going to knead, and then I think there's 2 or 3 knead cycles, a couple of rest cycles. It rises, and then it bakes itself. And basically, I have just finished doing everything I have to do, which is pretty exciting. Can't really see anything inside of it yet, but I can open the lid. There we go. So it's mixing, and it'll do that for a while. I can smell the cacao, which I think is going to be awesome. And you can see the cycle here. It says it started at 3 hours and 25 minutes. Now it's 3 hours and 24. And let's take a look at the BLUETTI. So 25 watts, 0. And it's in eco mode. Interesting. So we're going to check this a few times throughout. And one of the goals is to see if we can cook the entire loaf using the BLUETTI. It's an awkward positioning here. The cord on the bread machine is short. So I've got the bread machine on the counter, and the BLUETTI is on my step on the floor. And you know what else you might want to see? It's possible you might want to see Kat. Yeah, do you want to say hi to the people? You want to say hi to the people right there? They're in the camera. They're in there. Okay, so this is going to go for a little while. Now, a couple other things to note. I did spill a little bit on the counter. I got to wipe that up. But basically, I have this measuring cup, and I think I managed to use all the measuring spoons by accident. Didn't really have to, I think. I'm trying to show you this. Yeah. So I used one measuring cup and a couple of measuring spoons, and that's what I have to clean up from doing this. And then putting all the ingredients back away again, of course. So this is actually my second loaf. Okay, and now we're kneading. So we're 33 watts, but we're still at 100%. So that's very cool. This is the BLUETTI Elite 100 V2. And as I said, this is my first time to actually be using it. Let's take a look inside. Yeah, so you can see it's kneading it. And adding the cacao is going to make a darker loaf than it otherwise would. And part of what's going to happen here, and as I said, I did do this once already, right after I got it, just to make sure that the bread machine actually works so I could get rid of the box. And that's part of the reason I'm doing it on the BLUETTI, because I want to get rid of the BLUETTI box as well. So we're still kneading. And it's working a little bit harder. We're running 37 watts, up from 33. But still at 100%, so I'm liking this so far. We're going to see how this goes. And I'm curious, would you, first of all, would you consider getting a bread machine? And would you consider conducting an experiment like this where I'm adding cacao powder to the bread. Do you think that bread making is science or art, or a combination of both? I'm just curious. All right, we're up to 40 watts now. So as it gets harder, it's kneading harder as time goes by. We got 3 hours and 20 minutes to go. And at some point, it's going to beep like 10 times in a row after it's finished the kneading cycle and maybe the first rise. And at that point, I can take that paddle out of the bottom. I did not do that the first time, but I will do it this time. It didn't leave a giant hole in the loaf of bread, but it did leave a bit of a hole. Wasn't terrible. But I'm going to take it out just because. All right, we're going to come back and check on this in a little while. We're not going to sit here and watch the entire loaf of bread from start to finish. Okay, so with 3 hours and 10 minutes remaining, we are in the first rise phase. See if we can zoom in on that a little bit. You can see it says rise 1 down at the bottom. Oh, but it thinks we're making a 1.5 pound loaf. I bet I'm going to be overdone. Wonder if I can change my color. No. All right, well, this is probably not going to turn out all that well, I'm guessing, since the loaf size that we're telling the machine is bigger than the loaf size that we're actually making. How did I miss that? I'm not sure how I missed that, but we're going to let it go anyway. Let's see how we're doing on the BLUETTI. Well, right now we're not using any power at all because it's just sitting there, and we're at 99%. I did see it hit 500 something briefly while it was still in the kneading phase, so we'll come back and check on this. Okay, we are on knead number 2 with 2 hours and 51 minutes remaining. So I did a little Google searching in between the last time we spoke and now, and likely what's going to happen from having selected the wrong size loaf is that it's going to be slightly overbaked, which will be maybe fine because it was slightly underbaked the last time, and the crust might be a little denser and chewier, and I'm okay with all of that. So we'll see how it turns out. And let's check in on the BLUETTI while we're at it. We are at 98%, running 35 watts currently. So it's going to be quite interesting to see, first of all, if the BLUETTI is enough to get this done on an entire cycle, because we haven't gotten to the intense part yet. The intense part will be during the baking cycle, where I think its max output is 550 watts, but I don't think that's going to be a big deal. I was kind of monitoring on my big inverter panel when I did this the first time, and I took a look, half a dozen times or so, and most of the time it was running at a much lower wattage. So we'll see. We'll see. I'm pretty excited about this, though, are you? Okay, quick update here. I decided to take the paddle out this time, so here's the paddle removed, but I won't ever do it again. There was a lot of dough that remained on the paddle. I got dough all over my hands, and it took a lot more water and paper towels to get that cleaned up than it would have by far if I had just left the paddle in based on the first experimental loaf that I did. So I'm never taking the paddle out again. I'll leave the hole in the bread. I don't care. Not that big a deal. Getting it out after the fact was a whole lot easier. All right, so there's the update. We are on rise number 3. We're still at 97% on the BLUETTI. We haven't started baking yet, though, so we'll see what happens. We are in bake mode, ostensibly with an hour and 28 minutes to go. Let's see how we're doing on the BLUETTI. Well, we're down to 90%. Currently not outputting anything. Interesting. All right, so I think I'm going to open the BLUETTI app and keep that open for a while so I can see what the output looks like. Yeah, because as I said earlier, it's going to go through actual heating cycles. It's not going to be heating continuously. So we'll see what happens. I'm pretty excited. All right, check it out. Countdown says 0.00. Now it's on the keep warm function, but we're going to go ahead and turn it off and get the bread out of here. So we're going to lift the lid, and let's come down here and check out the BLUETTI. We are at 64%. Let me unplug this and get it out of the way. So 64% on 3.5 hours of total mix, knead, rise, bake. I'd say that's pretty good. What do you think? All right, let's get the bread out of the bread maker. And that requires pot holders because it's going to be hot. So there's one. Sorry, I know I'm looking all over the place here. And part of the problem is my BLUETTI is actually blocking my access to the pot holder drawer. There we go. See, I was smart and got the cooling rack out already, right there. But I did not get the pot holders out. So, what we're going to do, lift the handle, twist the bucket, lift it straight out. And I'm going to put this right here. That should be good. Give us a decent view. All right, now let's remember that I chose the wrong bread cycle. Come on. My first loaf did not stick. There we go. Okay, so I wanted a brown crust. I got a brown crust. And before I took it out, I probably should have checked this ahead of time. But there is actually an internal temperature we're looking for. So let's see where we are. Okay, so we're looking for 205 to 207. We might be overcooked. My first loaf was undercooked. Or we might be perfect. All right. So, this needs to cool completely. Let me just taste the crunchy little part. Now, the other thing, tastes good, crunchy. The other thing that I messed up, when I took the paddle out, I was supposed to have removed all of the dough and reshaped it when I put it back in. And I didn't do that, and you can see we got a little lump up on top here. But that messed up a little bit, but that's fine. Gives it the artisan look, right? Okay, so let me show you what the cleanup looks like. So we got a little bit of bread stuck around the paddle thing. Yeah, I'm not taking the paddle out next time, because this is going to be the hardest part to clean off. But you can see the pan is basically clean. That's where we are right now. I don't know if I'm going to cut this tonight or wait until the morning, but I will share with you the cutting process when we get to that part. In the meantime, I'm going to clean up my pan, cut my hair. So you might see this video completed with me having a haircut. I'm probably not going to do it until the morning. Clean up the pan, cut my hair, take a shower, do all those things. And you can tell behind me it's getting pretty dark in here because it's getting pretty dark outside. So it's about a 3.5 hour process. It used up, what, 35%-ish of the BLUETTI. So totally doable. with just a BLUETTI. Super, super easy. My advice is don't take the paddle out. When you take the paddle out, it's harder to clean the paddle itself, and then you got to clean down inside of here. I want to make sure I got a decent shot of that if I can. Yeah, can you see the bread stuck around in the center there? Yeah, it made just as big a hole. Really almost exactly as big a hole as it did from leaving the paddle in. There was a little bit of a edge, you know, from the paddle itself on the first loaf that I did. But I think leaving the paddle in makes a whole lot more sense. Those are my thoughts. Alright, we'll check back when it's time to cut this baby. Well, it's the next day. The crust is definitely hard. Very crunchy. So we're going to slice off the end first. Yeah, we definitely have a crunchy crust. Look at that, though. Oh, man. And it smells awesome. So the edges are a little crunchy, but I think the bread itself is perfectly cooked. Look at that. I like it. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm going to toast this up and have it with some scrambled eggs and some homemade jam, I hope. I haven't looked at my jam for a week or so. It might be past its prime. We'll find out. But this is winter, winter chicken dinner, guys. All right, so let me show you how I'm storing my bread. So I have a piece of parchment paper here, and I keep the butt end because it helps to keep the other bread, the inner part, from drying out. And I use the parchment paper because I really don't like having food in contact with plastic. But get a bag out here. Got the bread wrapped up. And then I pop it into a Ziploc bag. So this will keep it fresh without putting plastic in contact with my bread. So I'm pretty excited about this. Well, I almost forgot to give you the taste test view. I actually took a bite already. And the flavor on its own is really, really good, but I'm going to put some jam on it right now and share a taste with you. So this is my homemade chia seed preserves, and if you would like to get the recipe card for that, you can go join Patreon for free. Yeah, I've got a free tier at Patreon, which is different from being public, okay? So you got to join my Patreon, but you can do it for free, and I will put a link over there to my chia seed jam recipe because I love this stuff. Nutritious and delicious. Alright, let's take a bite. Now I will tell you, from my first bite, the crust is super crunchy. So here's what I'll do the next time. The interior of the bread is perfect. I baked this on a 1.5 pound loaf instead of a 1 pound loaf setting. So it baked longer a little bit than it otherwise would have, and the interior is perfect. But I had it on a dark colored crust. So next time I will do a light colored crust on the 1.5 pound, and I think that'll be perfect. It'll be the Goldilocks version. But let's take a bite. Two thumbs up, but one of my thumbs is busy. As always, thank you so much for being here. Hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see what's happening next time, either in my tiny RV kitchen or elsewhere. Bye for now.